All right, let's get started. Clay said he had some announcements, wants to introduce our newest member.
So I'm delighted to see that our newest member who joined just recently is Seth. Let me think now. Seth Flanagan. Massey.
Yes.
There we go. Would you like to take that mic and just say quickly anything that you'd like to say about your photography or why you're here?
Sure, yeah. Hi, nice to see all of you. So yeah, basically moved up to North Austin and then have kind of just been doing photography on and off for a while, but nothing crazy. And looked online to see if there's anywhere I could like learn more. And so that's why I'm here. Just wanted to, yeah, come and join and see what I can learn.
So let's see. We had a couple of renewals. So we appreciate your membership renewal. You can go on to the website and look for the PayPal information. You click the button and it's all done for you. And it lets Ed and the rest of us know that you're updated for 26, 27. So I think that's it. And any other guests that anybody else want to?
Gary has multiple hats to wear tonight.
Okay. Here we go.
I'll trade it. Okay.
Yeah.
Hello. Is this thing on?
Oh, yes.
Okay. My bad hearing, so I can never tell. So anyways, a couple things. First of all, I'm your virtual Cody, and I'm going to ask for judges this month. They sent out an email a couple days ago. I don't know if you saw that, but they sent out an email asking for judges for October. If you have not done the work before, it does not matter. Everybody has an opinion, a perspective. We want to share that. So people like you need to volunteer if you have a chance. There are other people I would point to here, but they're not here. I was going to bug them, but I'll have to send them an email as well. So yeah, he's looking for judges. So if you would like to share a little bit of your time and perspective, that'd be fantastic. Okay. 2, our theme for next month is October, or our theme for October is open. Is that right?
Texture.
Pardon me? November is texture. Okay, I'm way ahead of myself. Okay, so open and did that end Tuesday? Did we turn off? Open ended on Tuesday. Okay, so the next one that you need to be thinking about is texture for the following month. I need a calendar up here that I can get a green screen, Clay, and do something like that. Okay, so we finished open. That's what we're going to be judging. Next one is texture. Okay, so be thinking about that. Looking forward to your images for that. And no photo walks right now. It's too hot. I'm too lazy to get out. I'm sorry, not going to happen. But I've got some ideas. We're going to try to get some stuff going here pretty soon. I think that's everything right now.
I don't know what Patrick has scheduled after this month, but I know he's got it scheduled out through the rest of the year.
So I know education-wise for the mid-month meeting, we got Bill tonight. He's going to talk. Mark Lassade is going to be doing a session, I think, in November. I probably have my months wrong. Mark Lassade is going to be doing a session, education session 1 month. And then Mark and I think Patrick are doing a group session on, I think it's multiple exposure and ICM. I think is what they said they're doing.
They're going to do an ICM presentation before ICM images are due.
Oh, very, very good. So next month, I think, is an ICM presentation, and then the images are due the month after that. Okay, so I think it was a little refresher on that kind of stuff. So interesting education stuff coming up as well. Anything else? Okay,
that covers it from my point of view.
Okay, I think that's all that we wanted to bring up, and so now Bill's going to talk to us about. Well, Bill's going to talk to us.
Damn. Data access management, asset management. And what we're going to do is actually continue from where we were a few months ago when I presented, and we presented primarily about how to manage your files coming into your computer and how to get them backed up. So what this presentation isn't about, though, is we're not going into any step-by-step how to use Lightroom. We're going to be at a higher level of what you can do with Lightroom not how to do it. We won't demonstrate all the features. I touched the computer. What I wanted to do here in the introduction is say that we're going back and look at how we brought images in, put them on disk. And there's really two ways to put stuff on disk. But there's also a need to be sure you have your files that you've imported secure. And are you having trouble hearing me? We'll use this right now. Does that help?
You have to talk louder.
Okay, I can try talking louder. But we're looking at bringing images in. We're not going to look deeply into how to use Lightroom, but what you can do with Lightroom. So there's two ways to organize your images in protected disk storage. You can organize them by file name and use the file system, or you can keep them in a much more simple form and let Lightroom manage them for you. Some people are afraid of Lightroom because they say it takes all the files and it controls them and hides them. No, you tell Lightroom where you want to put them. You configure the directory structure that it uses. And you have it import the data for you. So let's see if we can get caught up here. Kind of covered that. So this is really an extension of managing your digital assets. And once you bring them in, you put them on your disk, however you organize them. And if we bring them in and put them in with Lightroom, I apologize for being disoriented here. But if we let Lightroom organize them, we tell Lightroom how we want them organized once, set that as a default import. And Lightroom can import those images the same way every time. And in general, Lightroom has some bit of, some bit of the date information that goes into its file organization. So if we look at how, here's what I talked about. The bridge directory workflow is simply you figure out where you want your images. Every time you bring new images into your computer, you decide where you want to put them in your disk hierarchy. And that's where you put them. In Lightroom, you make a decision up front how you want to organize your catalog and your files on disk. And that's where they go every time you import them. Both of them go into the same protected storage. So if you had a mirrored pair of disk, you would bring them into the mirrored pair images directory. And all your images go in there, whether they're Lightroom imported or self-imported. So here's the structure that I use. I have an image directory, year, month, day, and just whatever file name the camera gave. You'd have to really have a heavy shooting day if that ever rolled over and you had name mismatches. And Lightroom will even deal with duplicate file names. So the file names are sufficient. They also give you an order of capture. So in Lightroom, your images live on disk in a directory. You can go look at them anytime you want to. You can move them anytime you want to. Lightroom doesn't have any hooks on that. If you move your images that have been imported to Lightroom, Lightroom will lose track of them until you resynchronize that. but you haven't really lost anything. You haven't even lost if you've edited the image, you haven't even lost that once you resynchronize it. So if we look at just the activity from importing images to export, you're going to import the images, they're going to end up on your disk. And now we're focusing on Lightroom. They're going to end up on your disk. You can then review them. You can edit them. You can add keywords, ratings. You can use the keywords and ratings and other metadata to go find stuff. You can edit the raw files in Lightroom. You can export them to some other tool that can edit those for you. So let's take a look at the big pieces of the library tool and the scene that you see in Lightroom when you first get there, first open it up. So we're going to be looking at screenshots from my catalog, my big catalog on my desktop machine. So all of these are screenshots and we can't really go activate them, but we can look at what I provided. So there's an identity plate up in the left-hand corner. You're prompted when you set up Lightroom to put your name in there. And there's a few features hiding behind that little icon for culling. There's a module picker. We're going to keep it in Lightroom tonight. I meant library. We'll stay in library. There's some examples of where I popped out to develop and did some developing. The left-hand panel is kind of the input panel, where things come from. This one is showing my directory structure in my library. The right panel has metadata, the histogram. It has keywording over there occasionally. The library filter bar is one of the things we're going to come back and look at quite a bit for metadata. The central area is brought up. What you're seeing here is grid view with multiple images. You can look at single images or zoom in on images in that area. There's a toolbar down below. Toolbar gives you some tools, tells you what state your display's in, and gives you a few bits of stuff to rate with. And there's the ever-present film strip. One thing to note about this screen, top, bottom, left, and right, all have little arrows on them. See if I can point one out here. Right up here, that collapses that panel that we identified. So you could collapse panels and get this just down to that central view. The left panel has navigator, shows you your image. If you're zoomed into it, it shows you what part of it you're zoomed into. It has the biggies or the disk and mirror that you're on or file system that you're on. This is my file system laid out. It just shows up at the top level directories or years. You can also bring up collections in this panel. On the other side, we have the histogram that's omnipresent. We have culling tools, quick develop that I've never used, keywording we'll spend quite a bit of time on, and metadata that comes from the camera or you could have entered. Or in some cases, Lightroom will go take your GPS coordinates and map those to a location by name. So if you're looking at, and we're going to kind of go through a newly imported flash card. So if you're going to do image imports First thing you got to do is press the import button. It's over on the bottom left-hand side. And you get a whole different screen. You get a source directory, location, where it's coming from. You get an option of 3 things to do when you bring it in. You can either copy, get up there. You can either copy the file, add the file, or move the file. If you're coming off your flash card, really the only thing you want to do is add it to your Lightroom directory. It calls out the destination folder up here in the top. And also it shows you in the directory structure where it's going to put images as it imports them. So you can check right at this time that you're putting your images where you want them in your structure. Down at the very bottom and hardly visible is the configured, how do I want to do my imports? I've never used it. I just do it always one way and check it. So here's the import dialog, and the biggie you want to do is don't include duplicates. Check for duplicates. You could apply metadata here, but there's other times that you can apply metadata. So if you make your import as simple as possible, you just bypass that, go right on, verify your destination, hit the import button, and you wait. Because during import, Lightroom is building its catalog. So it builds directory structures. It indexes all of the data that it can get from the images. So it's creating a bunch of information internal. So when you say, did I have an image that was shot at f8? It can find all those images that have f8 because it's already collected that data out of the metadata in the image. So the next thing we're going to do is kind of open up a newly imported shoot and kind of step through it and see what we would like to do. Now, there's slides that kind of talk about what's here, and I built this presentation to go with handouts. So I have already given Ed a PDF of this whole PowerPoint presentation that'll be available for download. So the notes are here to kind of explain the images and what I'm talking about. So in this case, what we're saying is really there's no sequence once you open up a view of an import or a file or a set of files to what you can do. So you can bounce around. You can switch between grid view, loop view to inspect the images. You can take an image full screen. You can actually look at a little portion of the image by hitting Control and dragging out a little rectangle, and it'll zoom into an area so you don't have to go up and use the painful, what's the upper left-hand window? There's a way in the upper left-hand window up here to select zoom, but you're always going in and out. The other thing about zoom is that you're always shown up in this window where the screen is opened on the images. So what I'm showing here is where the directory, I'm not getting used to this, where we're looking at in the directory structure, all the images in my catalog, where we're looking at, here's a view of the first of those from Big Ben, and the image that's highlighted here, there's a histogram for it. its histogram, the highlighted image, all the metadata about that, and even more metadata down here, including GPS coordinates. If your camera records them, some camera systems have built-in GPS, some can take GPS coordinates from your iPhone. I've already been in here and looked around some. One image, a couple of images I've marked for delete, rejected them because I was shooting a crack in the cement. It wasn't important. The image in the center, I've actually edited. Hit D, went over to develop module, cropped it, did a couple other little things to it. Close develop, it's back in the Lightroom. The Lightroom catalog keeps up with all of those changes for you, so you don't ever have to go back in there to find them. You don't have to save a special file. Find something you're interested in, hit the E on the key or the loop view, and you can get that full image up. You can hit full screen and go all the way to the borders of your display. Just pointing out one little thing here, there's a status at the bottom shows whether you're in grid view or loop view. And there's a couple of other views, comparison, and another culling view that you could use. What we want to do now that we've kind of looked at what the camera's done, we want to add what the photographer knows about his images. So we can apply keywords now. We could go and select all of the images in the whole shoot and apply keywords. In this case, I applied Big Bend National Park to everything. So in here is another set of images from the last night we were there. And we were out shooting Milky Way. And for this point, we're tagging with Big Bend National Park, Milky Way, Terlingua. But when I noticed this, when I first did this tagging, I noticed that there was asterisks after several of these keywords. Pay attention to the asterisks. They tell you that all of the images that you have selected don't have those keywords. So if you wanted to make sure everything had been Big Bend National Park, BBNP, you'd need to go remove that asterisk. And that applies the keyword to everything that you have selected. Terlingua and Milky Way only applied to the few images, so they should have asterisks on them here. Same with BTS, behind the scenes. When something catches your attention that you're looking at, go in and work with it. Take advantage of the fact that it's just a keystroke away from doing something important. First of all, you want to mark them so you can get back to them. So there are 3 different sets of tags that you can put on images. The first and simplest is a pick flag. There's really just pick or reject. And the reject is the only one of these tags that has any effect on Lightroom other than Lightroom keeps up with it for you. And you can search on it. Pick reject, hitting an X on the keyboard when you're looking at the grid view, marks the image for delete. It's rejected. So if you have a blurry image or a photograph of the pavement, you can mark it that way and come back and delete it. The star ratings, probably the one we're most familiar with. 1 through 5. You have to make a decision as what they really mean. And the colors are even more dependent on what they mean. Nowhere has anybody defined what purple means. Unless you're a Brit, and then it's royalty. But the interesting things here, you've got hotkeys for pick, reject, unflag, which will clear, pick or reject. Your 1 through 5 puts on your stars. 0 removes a star. You can add colors with 6 through 9, and that's all but purple that can be added that way. You have to make a decision on how you use these tags. With the exception of the rejected or X, none of them have meaning in Lightroom. It's up to you. Things I'd suggest you don't do is count on colors. They're hard to track. Use the most common one, but start at 1. Don't hesitate to give it a 0 if it lacks, if you look at it and it's lacking. Make your image earn more stars. Here we've kind of talked about this already, but you can move in closer on the images with zoom or with switching out a grid view to loop view. There's hotkeys for that. There's also a hotkey for develop, which is D, and R is a hotkey to take you straight to cropping, because that's the first thing a lot of people want to do is crop. Photographer knows more about what they have taken in their intent than can ever be gleaned from the metadata out of the camera. Camera gets a lot of information from you, for you. But in particular, when you start shooting multi-image sequences, panos, only the photographer knows what the intent was. So if we look on further, I knew when we saw this sunset, I wanted to shoot it as a bracketed set. So I didn't blow out the sun and didn't have blacks that were just no information. They're blocked up blacks. You can go in and find a set of bracketed images. I have this set up and you can't see it real well from the back, but right across the top, there is, let's get a different image here. There's the f-stop, the shutter speed, the ISO, and the focal length. If it's a bracketed set, you want all of those to be the same with the exception of the shutter speed. So you can pick out your bracketed set. Lightroom can also auto stack for you. If you do the little pull down just in the middle there, pull it down, there's a stack. And it can stack by looking at images that are similar or by time. And it gives you a little slider. Well, here's the, don't have the slider here, but here's the auto stack down at the bottom. So you can have Lightroom, you can select up a set of images, have Lightroom stack them for you. I've never found it to be perfect, but it sure helps a lot to get it together. And the way I shoot brackets, I always have the nominal exposure of the first image, so that ends up being on the top of the stack. Once the image is processed through the HDR process and brought back in, it ends up on top of the same stack that you turned in to be processed to HDR. So now you've got, in this case, I shot 9 images because I was looking into the sun. I was also looking into a valley that was dark because the sun was going down. So when you do an HDR or a pano in Lightroom, and these are just easy to select, you create a new image file. It's a DNG, and it's put back in the Lightroom catalog. It's stored next to its source images and in the file system, and it's put back in the Lightroom catalog. So Lightroom can find all of the images that were the source and the created image. Lightroom gives you an image to look at before it does the full merge. Let's see if it's in here. I've forgotten whether it's here. No, that's a merged image. It gives you an image to look at before you say merge. And it gives you an opportunity to decide what to do with ghosting. Because if you have any motion in an HDR frame, it has to make a decision of which frame it takes to be the reference for a particular area. HDR doesn't work if the leaves are blowing or if someone walks through your scene. Someone walking through your scene is probably a better one. The HDR merge will actually capture that ghost and remove it for you. This is the result of that HDR. I showed you all the images. I like it. It's got lens flare in it. Other people don't like it. It's got lens flare in it. The 100 to 400 doesn't have real sharp sun rays, but there are rays there. Here we're talking again about creating that new DNG when you do the images, when you create a new image. So if you did an HDR, if you did a pano, if you did a pano HDR combination, Lightroom will create that new DNG file and save it with the originals that created it. So all your photos, including the newly created ones, end up in that same, in my case, year, month, day, camera name. It'll add a modifier to the name, for instance, image 1, 2, 3, 4, HDR edited. Once you've gone through, made multiple passes, found some images you like, marked some for delete, you can go back and look at the rest of the images with the metadata sort. Whoops. In grid view, you can come up here and hit the metadata and start filling in these choices. So I'm going to step around here so I can read this. I've got date. Actually, with my catalog, I don't have to put in date. Let's just go forward one. This is the same search. So the search or the filter always starts in the leftmost column. This is date, so it's selected a month, day, and month. Then I've got an option of, I'm showing which lens I had. In this shoot, I've used 3 lenses. I know I don't want to show anything that's rejected, but then I just kind of cut to the chase and show me what's got 2 stars. Why did I put 2 stars on? I knew I wanted to come back and look at those. So I've got a couple of HDR merges. That's why they have numbers in their top, because they're stacks. So you get this number on here. Other information that shows up in this panel is, was the image edited? What are the keywords? And when this is active, you click up here in this title like edit, and there's a pull down window of all of the pieces that you can bring in there. You can bring in keywords, text, all the camera created metadata. All of that's available for your selection. You can look at lenses. You can even find out what focal length you were shooting at. So you can use all the camera metadata to find images that you've never tagged, that you've never looked at before. Now, when I shoot out at Coda, one of the things I've learned over years is that I get real good images of people with brakes and lockup, cars blurred, wheels blurred, background blurred, cars sharp. If I'm shooting at about 500 millimeters and a low shutter speed. So in this case, I set up a search that picked a date, actually picked 3 days, the 3 days of a F1 event in a couple of years. I picked a whole range of shutter speeds over here. Come on. Of shutter speeds, because I know any shutter speed in that range could give a really quality image. And then, since there were so many in that range, I said, hey, just give me the ones that I put 4 or 5 stars on in this case. So they're out of 2 years of 2 or 3 years of F1. There are images from turn 15 where there was lockup. There's Jackie Stewart. There's Cars in the Rain. But that was picked out of a catalog of over 2,500 images. No, 250,000 images using that metadata search. The other way you find stuff other than metadata is with keywords. This is something that the photographer has to enter. My keywords are a mess. I didn't realize how messy my keywords were until I started this presentation and started digging. I've got over 330 keywords in a flat list. Some of them are duplicated. Some of them are just different by capitalization. Some of them are different by fat finger typing. I need to do a little housekeeping, but that's all something that you can do in Lightroom. I see a question back here. You want to ask a question? Okay. You're just real expressive tonight. So you can add hierarchy to Lightroom catalogs. I didn't know this until I started this presentation. You can create, for example, a national parks keyword. Below that, you can put Big Bend National Park and BBNP as synonyms for the park. So that when you put in just BBNP, you know it's a national park and you know it's Big Bend National Park. So here's my keyword list, and I've got some of the national parks that I've been to listed here, but there's just all sorts of things. There's NASCAR, there's MotoGP, there's Allie. Allie's a great horned owl that belongs to the Raptor Center in the Tetons. So I've got her in there twice, a little differently. I've got a Palestine high school reunion that's in there. I had no planning on how I did keywords. It was, what am I thinking about when I enter this keyword? There is a way to extract all your keywords. Bring them out, put them in a text file or a comma separated variable file, CSV, import it into Excel, and you can manipulate your keywords, sort them, find out what you want to do with them, and re-import them. I haven't done a re-import yet, but I'm going to create hierarchy with all of my keywords so that they carry additional meaning with them and they're easier to find. The other interesting thing about this, there are keyword vocabularies available free or to be purchased. So, yes, there's birds.
Somebody taught me a long time ago that the keyword, and just do the simple who, what, where, when, how. And just, and it makes things a lot simpler.
Mhm. And there's other people that spend 3 days in a presentation on how to do keywords. If we talk to some of our other birders, we learn that they want to be able to say where the bird was found, what kind of bird it was, what the bird's scientific name was.
Who, what, where. And if you don't know.
Collections. How many people use collections? How many people use smart collections? Ooh, one more engineer. So my collections need help too. I've created a collection for whatever I was thinking about wanting to work on, collected up some images, dumped them in there. There's an Intel 2016, there's from Lightroom. There's AA Prost, that was where I collected images to go to Prost. Go on their wall. There's precision camera and video landscape class. Just whatever came to my mind. Well, like keywords, you can collect collections into collections or hierarchy. So I could put everything that is motorsports in one hierarchy. Motorsports, NASCAR, MotoGP, World Endurance, put those all in one group, just a little easier to find. You can also sync these to your phone. So Lightroom has the ability to connect to your phone when it's set up properly and put those images on your phone, and you can change any of those images into collections. You can reorder them, move them around so they're in whatever order you want, and have them appear on your phone almost immediately. The other thing about collections is that I created a collection. My images on disk in my directory structure never moved. Only a pointer to them was used to create the collection. So the collection says, I want the image from 2016 in November the 25th, put that one in here. So it gets a copy of it, or actually a pointer to it so it can be found. So that and collection sets allow you to create any number of organizations of your images. For instance, I can create all Lewis Hamilton's different cars that he drove in F1. So he drove for McLaren, he drove for Mercedes, he drove for Ferrari. So I could put those shots in one collection. Now, if I went back and found his Ferrari pictures, they'd be in 2025, 26. And those would be still stay in that directory, but they'd show up in the collection. Smart collections. Smart collections have a lot in common with the filter bar. And I'd never done a smart collection, so I decided to do a filter first. So in a smart collection, you can do everything you can do in a filter. You can look at the rating flags. You can look at the keywords. You can look at camera metadata. more information you have, the better you can make that smart collection. And the important thing about a smart collection is it's dynamic. Every time you change something in Lightroom, give a new image 3 stars. If it makes it meet all the criteria to be in a smart collection, it shows up in that smart collection immediately. So to do a demo here, oops, I don't know. So I see what I said here. What I was saying was they're the same as searches and smart collections. So to create a smart collection, I said, what can I demo? So I went back, and created this search. Years, cars, focal length, number of stars given. And I took that information and put it in the Create panel for a smart collection. So the first thing that I put in there was date. In a date range, and this is just a pull down, you get to select it. In a date range, 25 October 17th through the 19th, the duration of the F1 event, with a focal length greater than 400 millimeters. I know I'm shooting for around 500 millimeters. Then a shutter speed greater than or equal to 1/120th or 1/200. That inequality is not real intuitive to me, but if you look at what you get, quickly you realize that the images you're getting are wrong, so you can change the filter. Don't include or is not rejected, because you don't get 100% hit rate at low shutter speeds in moving vehicles. And then I said rated 3 stars or more, because there's still a lot of hits there. And this is actually a different set of images than I showed you before, because the search criteria is a little different. But this is a smart collection. You can see it over here on the left-hand side in the smart collections. And that table that I showed you just previous slide is what created this collection of images. Now, smart collections have some drawbacks, and they have some real nice attributes. They have some pluses. They're dynamic. Anytime something changes, smart collection updates to track it if it falls within its criteria. Regular collections, it's up to the photographer to move their images into that collection. They can order those collections in any order. So they're not tied to however they match the criteria and their date. You can, in a collection, you can drag images around to place them in any order. Regular collections can be synced to other Lightroom products. So I sync my collections to my phone. The one thing that you can't do with a smart collection is sync it. Because it's dynamic, it doesn't get synced out to your other devices. So if you have a smart collection and you want to sync it, you're going to have to copy the images from that smart collection, just select them and move them to another collection that you're syncing, and it's done. There's one photographer, he presented recently at B&H that promotes that, has a tool that actually does it. Lightroom is not a standalone tool. it can interface with a whole bunch of other things. So it wants to be and functions as a center of your photographic activity. It keeps up with everything. It can pass images out to Photoshop to be edited. If you do a Control S in Photoshop or just to save, you can get that image saved back to your Lightroom catalog. It'll get a little difference in its file name and maybe be a TIFF or a PSD when it comes back into the Lightroom catalog. But it's there, it'll show up when you search. So you have access to that. There's other tools that can be used in Lightroom. One of the things that I didn't put in here that's probably worth thinking about and knowing about is virtual copies. So if I have an image that I have edited on a little bit and I want to look at it a different way or a different crop, I can create a virtual copy and start over and edit it any way I want to. When you create a virtual copy, you can create it from the original, another virtual copy. And up until just recently, you had to jump through hoops and dive backwards through the last one to get a virtual copy permanently in your Lightroom catalog. There's now a pull down that creates a digital negative of a virtual copy and places it in the Lightroom catalog. So now you can kind of freeze a virtual copy, turn it into actually an entry in the file system as opposed to just data in the database. There's some tools that are designed to work with Lightroom. Of course, the Photoshop tools, Photoshop, Helicon Focus, Topaz, Nik, and there's others that can be added to your Lightroom, and you can just, once they're imported or installed in Lightroom, it's just like going to Photoshop or HDR merge. It's select the image, select what you want to do with it. It passes it into Topaz or Helicon Focus. So you run the tool, it returns that image with a modified name to your Lightroom catalog. Now you have your original image and the newly created image in the same catalog. Lightroom stores PSDs, TIFFs, and virtually all of the camera RAW formats and JPEGs, and even some of the funny Apple formats. Lightroom and Bridge, I hear this from a lot of the PPA folks. I hear it from some of our members. Well, I use Bridge. I started out using Bridge. Lightroom wasn't very good, and I was afraid of it because it takes all of my images and I can't move them. But once you import images into Lightroom, you really don't need to move them. But one of the things you could do with Lightroom is point a new, fresh copy of Lightroom with no real catalog, point it at your directory structure that you created when you were assigning all the directories and using Bridge to sort through them. Just point Lightroom in that. It will import all of those images into its catalog. Doesn't move any files. When you do the import, you say add, not copy, not move, just add. And then you can look at all those images the same way Louis looked at the Lightroom catalogs that I have. You can see them by date. You can see them by any GPS coordinates. You can see them which camera you set them up with. Clay, you need something?
Yes, we have an online person, Jill, who would like to ask a question. If you can unmute and let's see if we can hear her. Go ahead.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Can you tell me how you got to that smart collections editing panel?
In the collections panel, there is a tab for Create Smart Collection.
Right?
And it pops up that, box, that interface box, where you type each of the
Whatever you're looking.
constraints.
Okay, great. That's perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it. And it's a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So the real point here is that Bridge and Lightroom can access the same files. They can trade some data in the XMPs like stars and other stuff, but they're not fully compatible across the file system. Lightroom has just a whole lot more information and can access it quicker. But it's a path if you want to change or want to experiment with both. Plugins we mentioned them just a little bit. So plugins integrate nicely into Lightroom. So I use Topaz occasionally, and the Nick suite. You just edit in Topaz or whatever tool that's integrated. That opens up on top of your Lightroom. You do your edits, you do a save, it goes back into the Lightroom catalog with a slightly modified file name. So the intent is that it shows up adjacent to the source images. And here's an eye chart for you. And this is intended as an eye chart. And Ed already has the PowerPoint, the PDF for this PowerPoint. So it'll be up on the website so you can download it and read this. But these are all of the tools that are compatible with Lightroom. And I'm going to look real close here at the screen, but Bridge we just talked about, Capture One, PhotoMonkey, DxO photography. Even some of the Apple stuff can work with Lightroom. So Lightroom tries to make all of the tools available for your use. The other thing we talked just a little bit about or mentioned was the ability to use intelligent applications to cull images. There's smart culling as part of Lightroom. It's mostly meant for people photographers, so it has eyes open, but it does have one slider for just sharpness. So even if you're shooting landscape, it might be worthwhile, instead of having to look at all of the images, look at the ones that are not sharp with that tool. If they're truly not sharp, hit the X key, mark them for delete, get them out of your catalog. There's no reason to have to go back and look at them multiple times. So the second eye chart are these assisted culling tools. Some of them are now to the point that they recognize people, not people in general, but people by name. Automobiles by brand. Race cars by their number, they can give you their driver. You can get a lot of additional information out of it. There's some built in, some plugins, and some pre-process as images. So the preprocessors would let you cull a large set of images and then import less into Lightroom. If you're in a real big hurry, PhotoMonkey helps there. We've kind of picked out the images that we want to do. We've culled them. We've got some starred images. How do we output them? Well, over in the bottom left-hand corner of the Lightroom screen, there's an export button. Export gives you a lot of ways to control what you're exporting. But the other thing export does is it creates a new piece of information from your stored image, your Lightroom modifications, if you edited in Lightroom, any changes you made to that image, it bundles that all up as a file so it can be output. So none of your assets that you had managed in the image directory is removed, only used to create an output. So you can change file format. You can put TIFFs, and you may have never had a TIFF in your JPEG in your Lightroom directory. We output JPEGs regularly for competition. You can change the color space, the size. You can decide whether you include metadata or you remove it from the image. When you selected that output dialog, here's what you got. And it gives you the count of the files that it's going to export. You can export large sets, or you can export single images. Where's it going to put it? I always choose now I've forgotten what the option is here. Select folder. That lets me select a folder at the time I'm doing the output, because I'm not going to output all of my stuff to the same place. I output competition images to one place. I output images to send to friends or print to another place. The file settings. I think I've actually got this, yeah. Export location. So specify folder. Here's a case where I've specified where it's going. The other biggie here is, do you put it in a subfolder and ask what to do with duplicates? Quite often when you're outputting, you try it again, get what you want. You get a chance to say, do you overwrite the image that's there? Or do you ask? Since I don't change names on images when I output them, I have camera file names as output names. And I don't change that until I've got the output. File settings. This is where you do a lot of the things that are important. What's the file type? What's the quality if it's a JPEG? What color space are you putting it in? And whether you resize it. And resize is interesting in that you can choose resize longest edge, you can resize height, you can resize width. You can also choose do not enlarge. You can choose the pixel density. When you've made all your selections, hit the export button, bottom right-hand corner, and it doesn't take very long to have your files. Go check them. Now would be a good time for any other questions. We drew this same diagram up front. Import, manage, find, select, process, use, export. This is redrawn, and it makes the point that really this center section is done in any order. There's no required sequence. Just look at them, rate them, keyword them, process them, go back, process some more, take it out to Photoshop, whatever you need to do to create your images. And then finally, you get around to export. Catalogs get better as you use them. The more information you accumulate about your images in your catalog, the more you're going to be able to use that. So when I get national parks cleaned up, I can say, oh, I'd like to see all of my images from national parks that I rated as a 5 or a 4. And I get all of those images brought up immediately on the screen to look at. I can also ask, what images did I shoot at f1 at 500 millimeters at 1/80th of a second? And I'd get all of those images. So you can go at it many ways. If I shot birds and I had a stellar sea eagle in my catalog, I could ask for stellar sea eagle shot in northern Japan. And it would bring up all of those images. So the more ratings, the more keywords you put with your images, and the more data your camera collects, the more access you have to your images. If you use a file system like I use and you count on the tool to place things in the file system, your imports are trivial. You plug in a card, you select import, you verify that they're going to the dates that you expected, you hit go and you wait. But you didn't have to think about or make any decisions up front. Which directory do I put this in? Was it fireworks from Christmas or fireworks from 4th of July or Christmas lights? So there's no thought that goes up front. So that now everything is where you can deal with it at any time you come across it. So you go back and you look through for fireworks and you find fireworks from Tetons. Okay, is that real? Yeah. So let's go add fireworks to Tetons National Park and put that there. Let's be sure that all of the fireworks images are coded as fireworks. So you can do these activities at any time. When you come across an image that you saved years ago because you like the front of the car and you're not about to use that image for anything else, you can mark it for delete. There's no restriction on when you edit or how you find anything in your Lightroom catalog. Lightroom doesn't have to do everything. If it doesn't have the tools to do it, for instance, Milky Way shots, there are tools, Equator, that stacks Milky Way images to get brighter stars and to reduce the noise in the background. Lightroom's never going to do a tool like that. It's for a very small community. But you can add that tool to your flow and use it with Lightroom managing all of your images. So your completed image goes back into Lightroom with all of its source images, but you used another tool. Keep the physical storage simple. Put the intelligence in the catalog, not in the file system. Import once. Leave the files in one place so they get backed up. And work with the catalog. Work with the collections. For anything you want special, put it in a collection. If you want to find something different, think about how you'd find it. Do you remember the date? Put in the date. Do you remember where? Put in the where if you think you have keywords for that. I think that covers it. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, Bill, I was hoping that some of our experienced photographers would add to your presentation by saying how they have used catalog or have not, but and why? Anybody want to take it? You experienced photographers who have large collections. Steve, okay. How do you use your Lightroom for organizing?
Pretty much kind of like he says, I usually just have one folder. I don't go by day or anything because you can use your EXIF data to sort the dates and stuff. I've never really played with collections. I think I got one collection from when I did a book one time through Lightroom, and that was it. But one thing to keep in mind though, if you start moving files around, make sure you move the files around while you're in Lightroom, because if you move them around outside of Lightroom, then it won't be able to find those folders.
Lightroom, if you move Lightroom files that are in the Lightroom catalog with any other tool, Lightroom loses track of them. But Lightroom will also tell you that it's lost track of them and will let you tell the system where they are. And if you say, oh, I moved them over here to Great Smoky Mountains, tell Lightroom they're there. It can go find them and it can bring them back into the catalog, not move them, bring them back into the catalog and keep all the data that it originally had with it.
And then if you're trying to, I guess, create a collection or a smart collection on ones you edited, I think if you actually add a preset when you import, it considers that edited. So all your files show up as edited.
I've never made that mistake.
So, because when I import, I usually have my camera profile and all that on import. I do a bunch of stuff on import,
Okay.
so I don't have to do it afterwards. So
Yeah.
it shows as edited. So,
Okay, that makes sense.
so then that's where the star, color, whatever you want to do might help as far as finding
Yeah.
photos.
And, the other approach is keywording can be applied on import or as a selected group of images.
But I do everything around Lightroom. So all my everything goes into Lightroom, but if I'm going to edit in Photoshop, I'll go from Lightroom to Photoshop, back to Lightroom. The only thing Lightroom doesn't like are my fit files from my telescope. So it doesn't recognize those.
It doesn't recognize those?
No. But when I save them as a TIFF or a JPEG, then it recognizes them.
Do we have anybody online with additional questions?
I can tell some stuff about my process also. I use Capture One, but it has most of the same sorts of features as the catalog. I've got the what were your groups called? The
Collections?
collections and the smart collections. I have something similar to that. And so, and I use Photo Mechanic as my first step. So with Photo Mechanic, I look at all the pictures while they're still in the card, and then I do sort of a select ones that I think are good enough that I even want to import. And then I can, at the point of import, I can have it put a lot of keywords in as it's imported. And then all of those that are imported, then I bring that stuff into Capture One. And even after I've imported it, I don't even bring all of those in, because then I'll often go through that set and start giving them stars. And the stars might not mean very much. It's like 1 stars are the best of these that I've got. The ones that I've brought in are at least all in focus, because I've looked at that at the beginning. And then maybe I go through and I have a bunch of 1 stars and it's like, 50 pictures is more than I need to edit. So then I hide everything except for the 1 stars, and then go through and upgrade some to 2 stars. And then I can hide the 1 stars and the 0 stars. And now I'm down to a smaller group. That is the stuff that that it might be imported in to capture one to start with.
This is just a more rigid workflow than what I demonstrated.
That's true. But as it comes in, they're getting keywords. As it comes in, I rename all the files to the date and something about I guess like the project. So if I was in Taylor, I might name it for each location that I stopped to take pictures. So when I find the picture later, it's much easier for me to go back and find it in my catalog when I know the name. If it was out on Google where I shared it with somebody, I could see the name of that, and then it would be very easy to find the exact picture quickly in my catalog. And one of the things I do with the smart catalogs in Wells Branch, we have a calendar that they do every year. And so I say, make a smart catalog from the last year where the photos were taken in Wells Branch that have a green marker, which means those are ones that I have edited and exported. So all of a sudden I can have all the stuff just from the last year. I know they were taken in the neighborhood, which they need to be for the calendar. And then I can choose the ones I want and get them ready for printing, print the 6 that I'm going to submit. And
Same thing, different tool.
yeah,
You
but it
could,
can do
you
all
could
the same
implement that.
stuff I can do. They have different names for the different components, but that's a case where I use that feature, and I use the smart catalogs pretty much because sometimes I'll just say like the location and bring that in the year, and then that can make a smart catalog that I can look through easily. So and that changes throughout the year. So as I take some more pictures tomorrow and put them in, and they end up with those things, then they end up in that smart group.
Dennis, you're a serious Lightroom user. You're a serious photographer
He wants you to talk.
and a Photoshop user. What's your workflow like?
Well, I have lots of friends that use Lightroom and all that, and I haven't taken that leap because I had a lot of pictures before I started, and I just didn't want to go back through all the pictures and keyword them and import them and do all that. I use Bridge mostly now, and I keep them in by chronological and by area and by subject and stuff.
So
like
you've
that.
actually,
But it is tough to keep track of and find a picture that you know you have, but where did it go? So I see all the benefits of it. I need to do that sometime, but I just haven't taken that leap or that step to get there yet.
one other thought, going back to the first presentation, you need to have enough storage that you can put all of your images in one place so that your tools can get access to it.
So
You can
actually,
do that with a NAS and run your Lightroom files or your image files on the NAS and run the rest of your stuff on your computer. This is particularly important for people that can't put huge disk in their Apple computer. You can use direct attached storage, and some of the direct attached storage will do redundant RAIDs so that you can deal with disk failure. So that's, if you don't have a big disk, that's an option.
So actually, I do it a little differently in that I do have a NAS, but I actually split my files. So when I'm taking pictures, I take a lot of pictures all at once. So I actually pre-cull everything, and I will go through and pre-cull all my images, and then I split it. And so I have everything going on in my NAS, but then I've also got the stuff that I culled out, and it goes into a different place on my NAS. And that other place on my NAS that's actually what I'm backing up. That's what goes into Lightroom completely. But it also is what is just a single folder then that I can then back up to the cloud and also get it, to my third storage place. I find that a lot easier sending because I take 10,000 pictures. I'm only going to look at 50 of those pictures, and I'm never going to go back to those other, pictures that I have them if I ever want them, but I'm going through it. I'm going to edit what I'm going to edit, and I'm on my next project. I don't need to look at those other projects again.
Yeah, I shot 70,000 one day.
Yeah. I haven't shot that many, but yeah, I have shot over 10,000 a day. But that's not too much of a problem.
Smart collection.
Yeah, so I will use smart collections. When I do that, I use it mainly for, like we went for our safari trip. And so I've got multiple days. I do everything by day as well. And I have folders for every day. But then if I want to look at my pictures in total, and I want to say that, here's the pictures that I'm going to publish or out to my Google Drive or whatever, so people can look at them. I will then use a smart collection to pull everything in based on stars. So I'll go through and for that day, I'll put everything with 2 stars, and then I'll create a smart collection for those 5 days, and then it has 2 stars. So everything automatically I have, and I go, these are the ones I want to edit. And I'll go through and I'll edit those photos, and I can go back to my original one and look for if there's anything else that I want to look at and go, I don't have enough elephants. I have too many lions. So I can kind of do a quick look at a global picture of what I'm looking at. If I've got multiple days of stuff, and be able to manage that in an easier way to do it.
Now, one of the nice things, if you're looking at a quick collection and you downgrade an image out of the collection, it just vanishes.
Right. So another way that I do it is that I use DxO for everything, pretty much to denoise all my images. So I've got my raw image. I will then have 2 stars on it. I'll throw it out to DxO. It'll come back as 2 stars. So I'll take my raw image. I'll take it out of 2 stars. I'll just give it 1 star. So it automatically comes out of my smart collection. And I don't like having virtual copies and copies of things, because I'll end up going and editing the wrong one of them. So I like a single copy of something that I'm working on. And then whatever's in that smart collection is the thing that I'm going to be working on. I don't lose anything. Everything is always, you have the effort to have all the pictures wherever they were originally, but I have a copy of that I'm working on. And this is my, this is what I want to work through, image by image as I work through it.
I need to learn more about your process. Something that I might want to adopt. Larry, you shoot a lot of stuff.
Actually, I had one other question that I do, but I don't feel really comfortable with it, and that is backing up your catalog. I have it so that it backs it up, and I think I have it go to my NAS at some point, and because I've had heard the horror stories of if it gets corrupted, you're basically SOL. So do you have anything that you can talk about doing backups of
There's 3 types of files in Lightroom need to be backed up or managed separately. There's the image directory. That's, in my mind, that's every image you have, regardless of the directory structure below it. There is the Lightroom catalog. That's something you want to be quick. I put it on an internal SSD, the fastest storage I've got on my desktop machine. Then there is the Lightroom backup files. Now, the backup file has everything Lightroom knows about your images, including the path name to where they are on disk. I back that up and I keep it adjacent to my Lightroom catalog in that highly protected area. So it ends up, in my case, on mirrored pair, on Synology, and since it on my primary disk, the mirrored pair, it ends up in Backblaze. So yeah, I can lose my SSD, but I only lose the modifications to images and to the catalog, keywording and the like, that I did between the previous backup.
So do you use, for your Backblaze, do you just have the NAS subscription?
No, I have just a desktop subscription, but all of my images live on my desktop in one copy. My first copy lives on my desktop as a mirrored pair of drives.
Okay.
So that way Backblaze says that's part of that computer. Backblaze would do the same thing with direct attached storage. That's part of that computer. So that's what Backblaze backs up. So you don't have to pay for them to back up your NAS.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I only have a single copy on my NAS, and that is the home for everything. And
I'm not quite hearing you, Jim.
I said I use my NAS as the home, so that I only have that's where it lives.
So you, to get that backed up on Backblaze, you have to pay their subscription cost.
Correct. And that's also why I have a much smaller catalog that I want to upload because of that.
One of the things that I have another step in between there that I have direct attached storage, which is still a big array, just like the NAS. And if that's hooked up, that one can be done with Backblaze because it's considered the same, but it still can have 5 or 12 disks or whatever. But it's not quite as fast. I mean, it's going to be like USB-C 20 gigabit or whatever. But that's a way that would work around that. And then I go to Synology on mine. So I will copy on my solid state drive like you. Then I have some software that will back it up to the other one. And I do that whenever I've done a big project. Then afterwards, I'll hit that and let it run overnight. That copies it to a second copy to the direct attached storage. And then once that's been completed, then I'll do another one that sends copies of all of that to the NAS. So right now my house burns down, I lose everything. I don't, except that I guess the pictures I've totally edited that I've shared with people, they're JPEGs of those that live out on Google that I've shared with people. So I wouldn't lose everything from a trip, but I wouldn't be able to go back and edit that stuff. But that's the steps that I've accumulated over time. And I have a pretty cool piece of software. I don't remember what it's called exactly. It might be fast file sync or something like that. It was pretty inexpensive. It can be free, but there's some advantages to the slightly paid version. It was like $25 or something. And then it works on Mac or PC, and you can just sort of make a list that all of these folders should be backed up. And then I can just click on that. It repopulates all of it. I say go. It analyzes everything and only adds the stuff that's new or changed. And you can have it so that it copies stuff out there, but won't remove stuff that's been deleted. So, or you can have it that it has like a direct mirror. So instead of having backup software, I do that one on my own occasionally. But usually it's whenever I've done any kind of big project, I come back from a vacation, I've edited all those pictures, then I hit that probably within a day.
Right. Yeah. So the cold folder that I've got, I think I spend, like the Backblaze that automatically knows about Synology. It's all built in for that. And I think I spend $7-8 a month to back it up to the cloud, and it's all automatic. And
oh yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I couldn't do 250,000 images like, I've got maybe 20,000 images or something like that, because that's just my cold stuff of even over the last, 10 years that I've taken pictures.
Yeah, your images are considerably cold to mine. I have most of what I've shot. I hesitate to even delete the ones I've marked to delete.
I've never deleted a picture. It's all on my NAS. It's just in a different folder, right? I mean, I've got, it's like, glacial storage, where it's just sitting there on my NAS and it just sit there forever. But then I've got, this is the keeper folder basically. And the keeper folder is just the stuff that I know that I don't want to lose. And if my house burnt down, that's the stuff that would be up on the cloud, and I would still have a copy of it.
Yeah, just going back to the backup sequence and types of storage. I think if you're running off of a laptop or you're an Apple user and you have big files, the direct attached storage is kind of the way to go. Keep it plugged in when your laptop's on the dock. Your direct attached storage is there. Backblaze will take care of backing that up for you. And a reasonable redundancy is a RAID 5, so that you can deal with one disk drive failing in your direct attached storage, so that you survive that first fault in your rotating storage. And it minimizes the cost at Backblaze.
Yeah, I was gonna add, Jim knows this because it took me 2 years to finally decide between a NAS or direct attached storage. Because I ended up going with a QNAP direct attached storage, just so Backblaze, I didn't have to get the pro version that, whatever. So everything is all 24 terabytes is backed up. And plus, like when we were in South Africa, even when I downloaded photos, they got backed up overnight to Backblaze. So if the plane crashed, my photos were still backed up on Backblaze.
That's the nice thing about living on your laptop. We've gone the other way at our house in that we have two computers. They're both home built or home assembled Windows machines. So they have a mirrored pair of drives on them. So that's our first level of redundancy. So that as soon as you import images, they're on a mirrored pair. Because that can fail and that motherboard can fail. Everything gets spun out to the NAS across the network, the gigabit network in the house. Well, then we have two copies. That takes care of almost every possible failure or loss mode other than fire or theft. And that's why we have Backblaze running. We don't count on it being immediate, but it's there. Gary, I'm sure you've got 2 bits to add to this conversation.
No. No, I mean, anything I had to say to just be a rabbit hole and make it go much longer so. No.
You're ready to go home?
I want to go home.
I like rabbit holes.
The gig tomorrow, I got to set up.
Okay. I have a quick question, and that is that if you're paying the subscription for your Adobe products, you get a free up in the cloud Adobe drive. Is there any function for that in terms of maybe saving a collection? Will Lightroom access?
Say like 3 photos.
the-
You can save like 3 photos too.
Yeah, you can save 3.
Yeah. Like 1 gigabyte and something.
Oh. It's really not. Okay. That's what I was just.
Here.
Backblaze, I pay 60 or 70 a year. So, and it's, terabytes. There's no limit.
And
Okay.
Backblaze protects you against fire, theft, and fat fingers to some extent because they keep backup copies. So if you change something and you really didn't intend to change it, you can go to Backblaze and find the original there.
CYA song.
Yes. Gary said CYA software.
I just want to, if we're wrapping up, just to remind everybody that we are a volunteer club and we have leaders who have served faithfully for a long time. Bill in particular has been president.
And Ed.
And Ed, myself.
Gary.
Well, we
Yeah,
need
and
you
you.
and me, yeah. But we do need you to think about how you could contribute to the club by standing in for one of these officer positions, president, vice president, secretary, the treasurer, Stephen has been treasurer for a long time, multiple years. So we're getting tired and we want you to think about how you could be an understudy at least. That's always possible. We have the competition coordinator, the program coordinator, Patrick St. Sin. He needs help with ideas. So we're entering that fall period. We need our nominations pretty soon. And I think we'll vote. We either vote in November or October at the November meeting.
Certainly by November, we need to have
Yeah.
a list of officers.
Yeah, we'll
Pin
put up
down
the
and-
descriptions and send that out for you. But please think about that. You come and your regular attendance is always appreciated. We just need a little bit more. And the leadership has not worked many times outside of the of the group. We've had a few meetings, but it is really up to the president to decide how much outside time. We've done a couple of Zooms.
Yeah, occasionally we do Zooms. We probably need to do another Zoom. We've got an image to select for our last image competition because we're going to all take one image that's selected. It'll be delivered as a digital negative, Adobe's interchangeable format, and everyone will edit that image
Okay, that's
to
the
create their entry in the
the
competition.
program. Yeah, it's an idea we're going to try for the first time, I think. Okay, any other comments about the club? Questions about the club?
Ed, thank you for making this happen. We depend upon you.
The recording will be posted to YouTube. Go check it out. And in some ways, the sound is actually a little better than in this room, which is kind of boomy and hard to hear sometimes.
The
So
other
actually,
thing
the YouTube video.
posted on the website will be the PDF of this PowerPoint. So you can get it, read the eye charts in detail, read what I thought I was going to say, not what I said. Clay, thank you much for making this happen.
Sure.
You're a big part of this team.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, well,
That's it.
That's a
Thank
wrap.
you, Ed.